everyone, and welcome to the Podcast by Army podcast, where we talk about BTS, Army, fandom, and research. We are your co-hosts, Dr. Kate Ringland and
Jhertau Her, a research assistant.
oh,
Ooh,
new
I
title
think,
today.
yeah.
All right, and today we're going to be talking about burnout.
Ooh, we're all burnt out. I am so burnt out. Just to begin, I guess I will begin because burnout, is my wonderful friend. But I am super burnt out as an army, because I help with a funding fan base. So we have just been going since
Mm-hmm.
chapter 2 started. It's like every single month a new thing to raise money for, to distribute funds for, to then collect data on and be like, okay, so we spent this much of this comeback, so next comeback we should be prepared with this much and blah 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 blah. And I am so burnt out. I'm so done. It's like I love BTS so much, but I can never catch a break ever. This is kind of a behind the scenes thing, but when Taehyung announced the layover album, there was this very short, like 12 to 24 hours where funding armies, we thought, wow, we have a month to prepare for his album, everyone. Like, we're gonna collect so much money, we're gonna be so prepared, we're gonna get informational things out so people know what to do when it drops. Like, we're gonna be so ready. And then 3 days later, he drops Love Me Again. And it's like we didn't even get a moment to breathe after the D-Day concerts ended.
Like
And
literally not.
and after 7 came out, we didn't it's like well, right now it's kind of a special time. It's a unique time. Because in chapter 2, because BTS are trying to release everything before they all enlist. Which, by the way, they're all gonna enlist. They all will enlist. They've all said they will enlist. I don't know the crazy people who are like, it's only the Hyung line who are gonna enlist, and then Maknae line's gonna hang out. I'm like, no, they all said they're all gonna enlist. Be real. But I have my own opinions on that. Essentially, yeah, or like from like the funding perspective, we are all very burnt out. Like, I very much believe that once all the chapter 2 pre-enlistment releases are released, we're banking on Namjoon's release being the last thing, the last big thing we have to do. I think we're all just gonna go on extended breaks. Like all the admins, we're all just like we're going on break because I don't know, but how you feel about this, but there is not conspiracy, but there's a lot of people thinking that since the Hope Edition album came out for Jack in the Box, people are thinking that maybe Big Hit will release live albums for other
Yeah,
things.
that is my guess.
And
Sorry.
we like I talked with other admins about this before, but literally we don't know how we're gonna sustainably continue on if we have to work on re-peaking things for the funding fan base. Like I would love to I would love to, so love to give so many of BTS's albums the peaks they deserve to go to number 1. Like if we just terrorized the Billboard charts for a couple months and re-peaked like all of BTS discography, that would be amazing. But I am really not sure how much capacity people have left to continue this because it's like continuous. Like there is no moment to breathe ever. And I love BTS and I want to support them so much, but it's like when will we get a moment to reflect, and actually look around? And it's hard. It's really hard. Yeah. Throwing it to you.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's funny because I came in to this community burnt out. Like I came into this space just being like, oh my God, life is burning me out. Like just
Yeah.
all the life things. And then I don't know, I feel like there, I mean, I've definitely had moments of respite. Like it's just there's a lot of joyful stuff that happens in the community that I find re-energizing in a good way. Um, but there's definitely a lot of feelings of like, I mean, especially when I was taking on a lot of the disability work. So basically, anytime I'm doing, fan labor, essentially,
Yeah.
I have felt like, you know, tired, basically. So tired.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that there are certain aspects to being in the community online that are also extremely exhausting just on a daily basis of like, oh, basically waking up in the morning going, okay, what's the drama today? What do we have to deal with
Yeah.
today? And not all of that is our fault. A lot of that actually is external to us and stuff we don't have
Mm-hmm.
control over, but it is still stuff that is like on the timeline. Um, One of my favorite days on Army Twitter was it was Hobie's birthday, and I can't. It was like Hobie's birthday right after I joined Twitter, so that must have been 2021, and it was just the whole timeline was just sunshine and happiness, and people were sharing pictures and memes, and there was not a single bit of drama anywhere to be seen. I was just
Yeah.
like, can this be every day on Twitter? This is so amazing. We like all collectively were just like, we're gonna celebrate his birthday properly. Yeah. And then versus this year, which it was not like that. So I feel like uh sometimes it's a lot
Mm.
and sometimes it's hard to know what it's hard to decide what to care about and like what's actually important. So like doing the fan labor, for example, like we choose to do these projects because we have some kind of investment in them and we want to
Yeah.
do them and we think they're going to better the community. But at some point, yes, we all need to do breaks. And it's just like doing any kind of activist work. You have to allow yourself time to just take time off and not do those things for a little while so that you can recharge. And so partly it's like, well, if we have these community projects like the funding projects, do we just need more people to help so that we can rotate so people actually have time off in between these things?
Mm.
Or what? We need different strategies, right, in order to allow people the time to take time off. Because like it's funny because Namjoon was saying in his live about how like this chapter 2 for them has been like a vacation because they've been able to take time, figure themselves out, do their own solo projects. Meanwhile, we have not felt like we're on vacation. And like
No.
as much as we joke about like, oh my God, chapter 2, we're being drowned in content, and like we've literally had something new every single month in chapter.
Yeah.
And like I agree that it would be nice to have a moment where we can actually be reflective of everything that we've been given and be able to like process what's happened. Because like I'm still processing D-Day, like the concert. I'm gonna be processing
Yeah.
that for a long time. But I have to like also feel like I'm keeping up with the other stuff. But I'm still sitting over here going, White Door. I'm just still sitting on White Doors. I'm going to be there for a really, really long time. And
Yeah.
I, you know, and so part of me, I just need to allow myself to do that and not feel like I have to be caught up on everything all the time. But another part of me is like, well, to be in this community and to be a part of this, I feel like I need that. And so finding that balance is challenging, to say the least.
Yeah. To say the least as well. It's like we try our hardest in like one thing being released and we go so hard for it. And then the next time something is released, there's like no downtime for us to recuperate.
Yeah.
Because people also a lot of people don't understand this, but for Army Twitter, the reason why I think a lot of people are very upset about these layover, Love Me Again and Rainy Days, the view numbers for those songs is because a lot of times armies take the day or the week off
Yeah.
when a BTS song is released. But since there's only 3 days notice, there's not a lot of people who had time to do that.
Right.
And that very much is reflective into our numbers and how things happen. Because people can't just not go to work or not go to school.
Right.
They have to. So there's a lot of things that happen during a comeback that cannot happen kind of like how they usually happen because BTS is changing how they release things, which is good, honestly. It's good they explored
Right.
those things.
Like that gives me like that makes me want to ask the controversial question of like especially with these solo projects, given the way they're each choosing to do their releases and making decisions about timing of release and what kinds of releases we're getting, like, whether it's streaming or music video or whatever, like the controversial question being, maybe do we then take a cue from them and be like, well, maybe this is something we don't go as hard on. Maybe this is something we're actually just supposed to enjoy because they're clearly not interested in X, Y, or Z because they're not releasing on to time it right for, certain charts
Like,
and things like that.
yeah, like maximize chart output type
Right.
of
So
thing.
like for example, for Amygdala, when Amygdala released on a Monday morning,
Yes.
right? So the music video released on a Monday morning at like for Pacific Coast time, it was like what 8 a.m. or something,
Yeah.
and it's mature content, so it had like not it was not for everyone. That video was clearly not
No.
meant for everyone, and then people still it was just like it was wild to me because I actually didn't watch the music video until Friday of that week. And because I had a bunch of people in my DMs being, don't watch the video until you're ready to watch the video because it'll trigger you. And which I was very, very appreciative, by the way, to everyone who was in my DMs telling me that because I really needed the time to actually sit down and watch it and process.
Yeah.
But like, so that being that, and then going on my timeline and kind of seeing, well, I actually stayed off the timeline almost all of Monday because people kept putting the triggering content on the time. Anyways, that was
ridiculous, by the
I
way.
was like, why? Anyway, I won't go there.
Yeah.
People make choices. I don't always agree with them. But there were people who were posting about streaming numbers. And I'm just like, this is clearly not something he was planning on having big numbers on. Like, it just
Yeah.
makes sense for it to get, it's not going to get, anywhere near any of the other, like, midnight Friday release numbers kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so I think about that a lot now of like, maybe we should be recalibrating and thinking about the energy they're putting into it and kind of trying to mirror and match that. If they want us to appreciate this as a piece of art and something that we reflect on rather than just like stream up the numbers on, then maybe that's something we think about. And I realize it's super controversial to say, but I
You
kind
can
of
say it though. You
I
can
feel
say
that way.
it.
I feel like it was true with the way Namjoon did his Indigo release and all
Yes.
he made and the small concert. And like clearly he was like, here's my art. It's literally in his lyrics. It's like, here's my art.
Yeah.
Appreciate it like you would appreciate art. I was like, it's not there to be, the summer pop whatever song, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's a very different feel, unlike an actual song that could go for numbers.
Yeah. Like especially with Namjoon, I feel like his release of Indigo, he released it during December. That is Mariah Carey season. Like
Right.
no
Right.
one will defeat her when it comes to Christmas songs. So him, I think doing it during December was also a very conscious choice. He made it during December because he wanted it to be like an artistic release. Like it was like he was focusing on the art of it. And that's why sometimes I get so upset with people who try to talk about Indigo's numbers and be like, oh, we didn't try hard enough. I'm like, no, we tried really, really hard for Indigo. And at the end of the day, with the resources that we were given, we did our best, right? Because people don't talk about this. People always complain, like, where's the DVDs for this song or this song, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But like, Indigo, Wildflower did not have DVDs for Billboard Hot 100 charting. So, live with that, like live with the fact that the members chose to do different things for their releases and just exist.
And the fact that they have been very, very vocal about the fact that they are the ones making these decisions and they're making these decisions for a reason. And I feel like it would help us all as a whole fandom to take a breather and be like, okay, we should be mirroring back the energy that they want to see in us. And So Namjoon doesn't want numbers. He wants us to have an intellectual conversation about the like interesting things he's saying, or he wants us to take time and notice the people he's collaborating with. He wants us to like,
Yeah.
sit and feel the music and, understand the art. And I think that each member has their own way of showing us that and showing us how they think they would like their art to be consumed, and to then assume the standard K-pop comeback for each album and then assume we're going to be able to do those numbers, then all of that kind of goes out the window, and maybe then we can actually have the breather that we need.
Yeah. I think especially for like as someone who's part of a funding fan base too, like we take signals from Big Hit a lot on what
Yeah.
we do. Because I remember with Seven in particular, because of the changes to the direct to customer store, the D2C store, that we got the DVDs, the CDs at that time. And we were like, okay, that's a sign. That's a sign from Big Hit that, okay, we're going to go for it with Seven.
Right.
And we went for it, and we got #1 on Billboard Hot 100 because of
Right.
that. But with other releases, like even for Layover, like for V right now, the CDs are only for slow dancing, which we don't even have yet, by the way. Hi, this is future Jhertau. I'm just here to tell you, for your information, that this podcast was recorded before Layover was released. So if you hear us talking about Layover, we're only talking about it with the release of Love Me Again and Rainy Days, and we don't know the context of the release of Slow Dancing because this was before Slow Dancing came out. Thanks. Slow Dancing, the song, is not going to even release till September. So very much we're taking that as a sign, like, okay, these pre-release singles, we're just getting hyped for the album.
Yeah.
Like this is not go 100% and try. Well, we go 100% every time, but this isn't like stress over trying to get #1 on Hot 100. Like just enjoy the music and go as hard as possible, but know that if you don't reach #1 on Hot 100, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's like a sign from Big Hit in that type of aspect. So like just being just like okay, here's the thing that happens. A lot of armies don't understand how funding works. A lot of armies don't understand how charts work. And because of that, their expectation every time is like butter.
Right.
From like 2021. Like they want 10 weeks of #1 Hot 100 when people don't even understand how much it takes to get that first off, how many numbers it takes to get that, and how the chart is different every week because of who's on the chart too.
Right.
So it's frustrating as someone who like is very ingrained in that knowledge and is around people who know it, when we have to witness people who don't know anything try to be like, oh, you guys didn't try hard enough for Hobie because like Jack in the Box, Hope Edition, just, or people are like, oh, you didn't try hard enough for V, like because he's not charting like top 10 Hot 100.
Right.
And it's like, well, we tried our best. We tried really dang hard. And that's the best we could do. I genuinely don't understand what some people want when they do those types of like say those types of things online, where they're like, "Oh, you guys didn't try hard enough." Well, what we did, what you have right now, the numbers and the amount that we have done and the chart positions, that is our best in this moment. So it's like, what do you want?
Right, and I ask that question a lot online when people are just talking out there, but
yeah,
because it's just like, okay, well, and I feel like this is true not just for like charting and stuff, but this is just like true across the different fandom things of like, we're all here doing this labor for free, and to have people walk in like at the end of the day and be like, well, you guys didn't work very hard, did you? And it's just like, it feels very much like the story of the little red hen where she's making bread and she keeps trying to get her chicks to come in to help her make the bread. And they're like, no, we want to play. And she's like, okay, well, if you don't help me make the bread, then you're not getting any bread. And they go, no, we want to play. And then she's got the bread sitting out on the table and all the little chicks come home and they're like, we're hungry, want to eat. And she's like, well, too bad, you didn't help me make any of this. So, you wanted to play instead of helping make the bread. So I think about that a lot in my life. But like, people coming in at the end and being like, well, geez, what were you doing this whole time? And why didn't you work harder? And it's just like, we're over here like working our butts off and literally
Yeah.
burning out. And, and that's the appreciation that people have is like, why didn't you work harder? It's like, well, where were you? Why aren't you working harder? Like, why aren't you out there, helping us drum up, whatever, or,
Yeah.
I feel like part of this, maybe part of the lesson here is just telling those people to shut up and sit down.
Honestly, yeah, it's like what like one of my like go-to responses like you don't know enough to participate in this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you do not have the expertise. You do not have eyes on the ground.
Yeah.
You do not actually get to have a say in this conversation. And I think that's a really healthy attitude, honestly. And I think for the most obnoxious people, they, if they, and I feel like this is true across different things, that
Yeah.
some people are really just there to make noise and echo the things they're hearing other people say. There's a lot of people that are just like copy and paste what other people are saying
Yeah.
without any actual thought or expertise in the matter. And then those are the people that deserve a mute or a block, because they're just like they're truly there to be noise. And
Yeah.
for those of us who are actually spending a good portion of our day in the community doing this hard work, like we don't need that in our lives.
We
And
don't.
and I think it's okay to silence that noise a little bit.
Yeah. I block a lot of people for just saying silly things. Or kind of the add on to this conversation as well, like people who have ideas for things and say we need to do this and that, but then they make
Right.
no effort to do it.
Zero follow through. Yeah.
Yeah. Like this is not to be mean to anyone in particular, but I know that there have been a lot of people who say we need to do better at streaming. We need to do better at voting. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, like there's ways we can get more people involved and teach more people about it. And then they say all that. They get like 100 likes, so many retweets, people like going like, yeah, we need that. And then nothing. They don't even share like a funding fan base's like guide at all. They don't
Right.
they don't like share any threads from a voting fan base. They just say it and then that's it. And I'm like, you might as well put your like money where your mouth is. Like I have this one mutual who for years is talking about we need to make better playlists. We need to make playlists to help people. And they actually make playlists. They make a lot of playlists now. So they put their money where their mouth is, Right. For me personally, I've always said we need better educational content in the fandom. That's why I put my money where my mouth is.
And here we are.
Here we are. I have a podcast. I have a YouTube channel. Like, yeah, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna stick by what I say. And there's a lot of people who don't do that. And because of that, they grow frustrated with themselves and with other people. And they're sitting around thinking, why is no one doing this thing? Well, you have to be the one to do it. That's a fact,
Right. Yeah. No, totally agree. Totally agree.
I wish people would stop talking about wanting to do things and just do it.
Yeah.
Like there's so many times where people are like, oh, I have no time for it. Well, I also have no time.
Yeah. It's not like any of us are doing any better in the realm of time on our calendars.
Yeah. It's about making time, you know? And this kind of goes back to the whole conversation about burnout too. It's like, I want to do so many of these things and I am making time to do them. Yeah. But also in that, I am also not resting. Like there's sometimes where it's like very long days of just editing videos and making content and also making educational content as well. But with that, you have to kind of do things even though it's going to take a lot of your time, you're going to do it. So that way it's there. That's why a lot of armies, like they make archives, archives take a lot of work to compile and put together, but people make it and then it's there and it's there forever now. So it's kind of like that. Like even it's like, you're going to do something. It doesn't have to be a permanent thing that you do every single day. You just have to do something that you believe in and then have it be there. That's the whole point,
I don't know. It's just like so funny because we're like, yeah, we're totally burnt out, but it's not like we're gonna stop.
No. It's like I'm not stopping till Nam okay, just hopefully Namjoon releases his album and then I can go on hiatus for a couple of weeks. That's the
Well, I mean,
plan.
maybe that's the other thing is like when we talk about taking a break, we don't necessarily mean like go offline for 3 months, right? We're like,
No.
for me, taking a break is like, waking up on a Saturday and going, you know what? I think I'm just not going to go online today and just focus
Yeah.
on my kids and, clean my toilet and do the things around the house that need to get done, right?
Yeah.
And like that is still a break. That is still taking time away to do other things. And I think that it can be just as easy as that. And like for me, like this summer, for example, I'm putting a lot of time into the last couple of months, putting a lot of time into doing things like this podcast and working on some other things. And I've also been spending a lot of time with my family because they hadn't seen me the entire school year last year because of my job.
Yeah.
And so there were a couple weeks there where I was more or less not really online. And when I say that, I am not one of those people that's like, okay, I'm going offline and then I don't check Twitter. Like I'm checking Twitter every day, y'all.
Yeah.
I have actual thoughts on that too about like actual social media breaks and stuff, which we could get into. But basically, I like to finish my other thought is like, I just maybe am not posting as much. Because for me, the part where I get burnt out or the part that stresses me out that leads to burnout is when I have to put thought into what I'm posting, right? Because we've
Yeah.
talked about in other episodes how like I am fairly reflective about like the content I'm putting up and thinking about how I do that. And so for me, taking a break is just not doing that for a little while or, staying in my group chats and DM or what have you. But there's still a lot of like, I'm still on Twitter seeing what's going on for the most part. There might be days I don't look, but there's not an extended period where I'm not online.
Yeah. For me personally, I really want an extended social media break. That's what I want. Because I feel like so much of my life revolves around Army, which I love, by the way. Like, I am so appreciative that I'm able to be part of this community and give so much to this community. But there's times where, like, even I think during finals week, I was completely offline. Like, I just deleted Twitter at that point. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be tempted to go on it. There's so many times where I just wish that I felt comfortable with being online for a long period of time and not worried that me not being online would somehow affect BTS as well. Because like when you're part of a funding fan base too, a lot of what you do like directly affects BTS. If you don't help in this aspect, this could mean less sales, less points for charting, whatever. So like when you have that more direct kind of hands-on approach when it comes to contributing to the fandom, I think it like does lead to a lot of stress. And I really wish
Right.
sometimes I didn't feel that as much. It's all myself, by the way. It's like I'm the only one who does this to myself. It's like the other admins are not saying anything that would put pressure on me. If anything, the other admins are like, yes, go take a break.
Right.
Go. Like go
Right.
do that. And but like I feel like I don't know, but it's like a weird personal responsibility to kind of because like I have the capacity to be
Right.
here and to do things. But eventually I know my capacity will run out
Right.
and I'm just kind of holding on till that happens.
Yeah. I think for me too, there's a certain amount of like, I know I have certain expertise and lived experience and things. And I know that there are especially moments, especially with the way Twitter has been going, there are certain moments where I'm like, hey, my actual expertise could be useful here in helping people or could be useful here in helping people understand what's going on and not, and contributing to the community in that way. So there are moments where I'm like, oh, I feel compelled and responsible to actually say something and do something. Um,
Yeah.
and so like, yeah, there are times where I'm like, oh, and like the whole thing with Ticketmaster and dealing with disabled seating for concerts
Yeah.
and stuff, like all of that feels like a responsibility that is important to me. And I couldn't stop. Like I couldn't just give up halfway, right? Like, I had to see it through to the end. And
Mm-hmm.
um, so yeah, I get that there are I get that. And I think partly it's like finding that balance so that you can say, okay, I can take a step back for a little while, or I can, not engage with, this particular thing for a little while, or I can find respite in another space. I will say that, like, I have particular feelings about the whole idea of social media breaks from a disability perspective, in that for some folks, myself sometimes included in this category, the place where we socialize and have our friendships and have our community is online. And so the idea of, oh, saying something like, oh, Twitter's stressing you out. Oh, why do you go on there? Just don't use Twitter then if you're stressing out and you're feeling burnt out. And that is like not the answer. Basically, that is basically saying like, oh, your friends stress you out, just don't talk to people then. And so I have a lot of really mixed feelings about it, kind of in a broader sense. Like so I'm saying, like, it works for some people, and if it's something that would make you feel better, I encourage you to do it. But like for other folks who are like, well, I could never do that, I don't want to be like, well, you have to do that. Like, don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I like, because like for me, the idea of losing access to my Army community feels kind of horrifying. Like, I would, like, the whole idea of like, if Twitter just disappeared tomorrow, I would be in shambles, because that is like where I do a lot of my socializing, like that's where I'm social. And so I don't know, because I feel like for some folks, trying to interact and socialize in other spaces, that's where it's going to be even more stressful. So like, for example, like me, in-person communication is a lot harder. It's a lot more stressful, and it's super draining. And I have to kind of work myself up into doing that in general. And then to try to maintain friendships and stuff in that space is a lot more difficult for me. And so the place where I'm comfortable and I go to relax and be myself is Twitter. And so the idea of cutting myself off from that, like, kind of space it would not help with my burnout, basically. It would make it worse.
Yeah. That's really good perspective, though. I'm glad that both of us are pretty different people, so we can bring a lot of perspective to this podcast. Because, like, for me personally, how I feel about it is, like, I feel like Army is stable, like, in a way. Like, as long as it's there, then I'll be able to come back to it, and it's gonna be okay, right? So it's like that kind of thought is comforting to me. But like, I can understand you're coming from, like, with Elon Musk right now, and the whole X and stuff, and the weird things they want to implement, and like, it's like wanting to still be attached to that. But I don't know. For me personally, I'm the type of person that, like, I will go months without talking to anyone. I don't think this is healthy, by the way, but I will go months without talking to anyone, and then I'll come back more content. So it's like weird mentally.
I don't know. There's like I am a unique person in that I am an extrovert. You would never know it, because I'm also like fairly neurodivergent. So the ways in which I get energy is from other people and from interacting with them, like, which you can kind of tell if you look at my Twitter. So I find people to be very energizing, and I love it. But in-person, face-to-face interaction is super, super, super draining for me, because I have to mask and be like a normal person.
Oh,
which is impossible for me. So like, I have to put on this whole persona, if you will, when I'm like in person, or, so I have to do all this masking to look normal. And so any of the benefits I might get as an extrovert from face-to-face conversations basically gets nulled out by the like energy that's required for me to like mask. So if I take away the need to be normal, then I can actually gain energy from people. So I tend to lean into spaces like online spaces like Twitter, where I can be like, okay, I don't have to do all masking that I normally do because I don't have to worry about facial expressions and eye contact and all body language and all this stuff that's like extra draining for me. I can just focus on my words, which then allows me to kind of be more myself. Then I can get that, like, you know, energy from people. And I will also say that when I'm talking about like my online community and interacting with people, I'm like really talking about my moods and the people I've actually like made friends with.
Yeah.
And even them, it's not like I'm necessarily interacting and talking with them every day, but I feel like I'm in the same, to use your analogy of Twitter being a house, like I'm in the same house as them and I know they're there. And if I'm not interacting in the space at all, then I'm not in the house with them. And so I'm not getting that same energy.
That makes sense. We are two very different people because I'm a massive introvert. So solitude.
I am surrounded by introverts, and I understand that.
Wow.
I come off as an introvert because
yeah, you do.
I literally told my family this just like a few weeks ago. I was like, did you know I'm an extrovert? And literally no one, like everyone was like, no, that's not real. I'm like, yeah, it is real. I've been an extrovert my whole life.
See, it's the neurodivergence. People always assume that you got to be some certain way to be an extrovert, but really it's like nuanced. It's nuanced. Yeah. That's so interesting to me because I am someone like I need solitude. Like us okay, Kate, I appreciate you so much, but us talking so often it's kind of draining to me.
Yeah, see, like, no, for me this is energizing. Let's like keep going. Let's keep going.
Let's keep going. But I love solitude. I could probably, those videos where it's like solitary confinement, 24 hours.
That is like my worst nightmare.
I'm like, wow, I would do pretty good in that. Not
no, I would go crazy.
Yeah. It's so interesting, like, to hear that from people. Because some people are like, oh, if I'm like in solitary confinement, I need like a book or like something to watch. And I think I could just lay there for hours and not feel anything.
Actual feelings of panic right now. Wow.
So sorry. Hey, but it's good to have two very different perspectives on how to deal with burnout then. And kind of how we can add that to this podcast. Because I know from like, just from my perspective, taking breaks is really important just for like my social media health. Like before I joined Army, when I was in other fandoms, I would take breaks. Like, I'd be like, okay, guys, I'm taking a break this week. See you next week. And then, because I would also run fan events. So I would like run a fan event for a week and then be like, okay, guys, break, bye. And then I would come back in another fan event. So that's how it was very healthy. It was like sustainable for me. But for Army, it's like I have to be here constantly. And it's like, it's kind of like, ooh, I'm gonna go crazy. Being around too many people. That's also like going to concerts is very draining to me. I love going to concerts. It's euphoric. It's great. Yeah, it's totally. But after the D-Day concert, I was nonverbal for a good like 36 hours after that. And I just didn't talk to people.
I was hyped. I was ready to go. I was like, bring it on again. Yeah.
Wow. I never realized they're this different. Yeah. Wow. That's very interesting to think about. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we're very different people. We experience burnout very differently and we cope with that differently. And wow, I've never talked so deeply with I keep saying this in this podcast. I've never talked so deeply with someone else about their experience, like how they deal with burnout. I don't know, that's probably the Asian in me as well. Like you just don't talk about some things.
Yeah, I won't say it, but yeah.
Yeah. Being Asian, that's kind of it's okay. Like I feel like I don't ever talk with my family about being burnt out or just like we talk about some emotional things, but we don't talk about emotions all the time. Because it's just, like you just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yay! Different perspective.
Yeah. Like I guess to circle back around to like to what we were saying at the beginning, it's interesting because everybody comes to this fandom with their own baggage that they're bringing in, right? Like, so like I came
Yeah.
burnt out and looking for like respite and looking for a new lease on life, essentially.
Yeah.
And the ways in which we handle things and the ways in which we deal with our own baggage then like really impacts how we experience the community and the fandom. And I don't know,
Mm.
I think there's something to be said for allowing for other people to like knowing that there are these huge differences between people and allowing people to have their own ways of coping and being in these spaces, I think is also super important to think about. Thinking about how, we've seen a lot of big accounts in the last year, like go on hiatus, for example. And
Yes.
we've seen, I mean, I've had a lot of moots who have also like either moved platforms or kind of just faded away. And, it's one of those things where like I feel like, yeah, I'm gonna check in on people and make sure they're okay and stuff, but also letting people have their space and letting people do what they need to do, I think is also really important.
Yeah. Because I know personally a lot of armies who, when chapter two started, a lot of them went offline.
Yeah.
Or they said, I'll be back in 2025 and BTS are back.
Right.
And it's I have very conflicting feelings about this because on one hand, it's like we were all in this together. Well, a lot of these armies are like funding buying
Right.
armies, right? Where it's like
Right.
we were all in this together, and a lot of these people have been buying for BTS since like 2017
Right.
when DNA dropped, right? And
Right.
Love Yourself Her came out, and then they just left, and it felt kind of almost like I know I shouldn't feel this way, but it kind of does, where it feels like betrayal or like I thought we were in this together type of vibe, but now you're gonna leave and then never come back, or you're gonna not participate in kind of this like crucial part of BTS's career where each of them are kind of exploring. But also like I know that like I shouldn't feel that way because everyone should be given the opportunity to leave whenever they want to and
Yeah.
to experience like BTS how they want to. And
Right.
it's very conflicting in my heart because I know these people still love BTS, but they just don't have the capacity to like do what they've done before. And it's like I don't know, it's frustrating on like from like a funding and like buying and like this voting and streaming perspective because like we we want there to be as much as possible for BTS and we
Right.
want there to be a lot of love for BTS. But then sometimes it's like these transitional periods where different things are happening. It's kind of like everything that happened kind of post Love Yourself, where there was like a big transitional period in like 2018, 2019 for armies and kind of
Right.
reevaluation of where the fandom is going and how far the fandom can go. And then kind of we have a reevaluation now after post 2020, post English trilogy of where our fandom will go. And just having to experience that, because I know people talked about experiencing it. I remember when I was a baby army, like 2020, 2021 army, people talked about experiencing that where there was like a lot of changes. But then actually having to go through that is like, there's a lot of emotions happening that I can't really pinpoint or explain. It's like losing like childhood best friends, kind of,
Right.
where these people that like were around you and who cared about you are now just like not part of your life anymore. And
Right.
it's like, I wish you were, but I know you're doing other things now. And
Right. It's that
yeah.
like idea of like, and it's something that like just happens throughout life anyway, but it's like the like you're friends for a season and now the season is over and the season has changed and now we're into a new space. And a part of that is
Yeah.
the emotional like just dealing with that emotionally. And I think that some of it is hard because at least for me, I'll speak for myself, but some of this is hard because so much of this is happening in an online space that is not visible to the rest of my life.
Mm.
It's hard to talk about these emotional things. It's hard to talk about, somebody leaving or, going away for a while or whatever and being like, oh man, I'm going to miss them, or like, having these friendships that kind of fade away and having the rest of my life not even understand that because it was never visible to them. And I think that that is also really hard in that I have to somehow give myself space to have these emotions, to feel my feelings, and to take that break and be like, okay, I'm just going to deal with this feeling for a little while also having, living in a house with my family and having my lab with my students and not having the ability to like truly explain to them what's going on. It's like for example, with the D-Day concert and the D-Day finale, people in the lab, for example, going, because I was talking about how I had to, stay up for these concerts, or because it was in Korean Standard Time, and so it was like middle of the night for me, right?
Yeah.
And like, so I was talking about that as a thing, but then having people come after the concert, coming up to me or like talking to me or whatever, like during our meetings and whatnot, and being like, how was the concert? And like, it's the like, I have to be like, it was good. It was great. I loved it. And not unleash all my emotional baggage of like, I cried the entire day. And like, and not have all of that be visible to my life is very, very strange. And I think that maybe in some ways contributes to that burnout a little bit of like, it kind of, it's like that thing of like, people don't believe this so much anymore, but like, especially when I was starting grad school and stuff, people still truly believed that the stuff happening online was not as real as the stuff happening offline. And you'll still
Yeah.
will say that like, oh, my offline friends versus my like the people I know online or whatever. There's still a lot of that going around. And I basically spent my whole graduate school like combating all of that. But anyways, but I think especially post 2020, people are much more like, oh yeah, the stuff happening online is truly real and really happening to you. But there's still that lack of visibility into it. And so like, if I'm having, a moment where a tweet is popping off or I'm getting dogpiled or like whatever, all of those things are really truly happening to me. And it's an emotional experience I'm having, but there's zero visibility outside of my Twitter community. And so
Yeah.
how do I express those emotions? How do I process those emotions when people simply do not get it? Like it's one of those, it's still a question mark for me of like, and maybe that's why I can't truly leave Twitter, because I need those people who also are experiencing these things to talk to about these things.
Yeah. I get that a lot. We go through so much emotional turmoil, and there's kind of no one to talk to, not in like quote unquote real life, or
Right.
just like something that you can see like
Right.
tangibly, that you could like hold in your hand. Like there's things like that that you don't get. It's not the same experience, but
Right.
you still feel it like emotionally.
Yeah.
Like I remember like when we meet and when we talk to each other in real life, but like in the
Yeah.
lab, right?
Yeah.
And then people would watch us talk. Like I remember there's some guys that said that like it's like fascinating watch us
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
together, because it's like we get each other on such an intrinsic level that like
Right.
everyone else in that space doesn't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That it's, and then that's exactly that feeling of like, I can try to explain to you what is going on right now, but you are not going to buy into it.
No.
You're not gonna understand. You may not even believe me when I'm telling you that these emotional things are happening, and you're certainly not going to buy into it in a way that's going to help me process it.
Yeah.
Was trying to explain to my partner about like why I was crying all day on Sunday after the concert, and I was just like, and then there was a door, and then the future was going to be okay, and like his reaction was something along the lines of like, why does that matter to you? Like, why does that emotionally impact you in any way that somebody else has told you, some random person has told you that the future is going to be okay? And I was like, I can't talk to you anymore about this. I'm going to go somewhere else and process this alone, because clearly you're not the person to talk to about this. But yeah, there's just like, if I said that to somebody who lived through that experience with me, or is even like on Army Twitter at all, like they would get it, right? They would like understand. But like
Yeah.
outside people, like just do not understand the like emotional weight of what it means to be here in this community.
Yeah. Which I think is okay. It's like I feel like I would rather talk about it with an army sometimes than
Yeah,
with other people. Like
I agree.
Like
But
there's
I do feel like there are times though,
yeah.
like I need to explain it. I need to be like, this is what's going on in my life with my family or with my students. Be like, look, I am in this headspace. So you need to be aware that I'm in this headspace. And like when I'm trying to deal with my burnout, like I need this break. So please don't talk to me about this, or please like give me some space or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah, because I'm kind of the same way where like when I went to university for the first year, for the first time in my life, I had to be around people 24/7. And as an introvert, that was exhausting. But living with people 24/7 is so exhausting. And then when I'm watching BTS videos and I'm crying watching BTS videos, and it's like my roommates are like right there. And
Right.
then they're like, "Why are you crying? Like, what's wrong?" And I'm just like, I don't know how to explain this to you. Like, you're not gonna
Yeah.
get why I'm crying to a video of Yoongi making cute sound effects.
Right.
Or like you're not gonna get why I'm crying at a video of watching BTS and American Hustle Life and watching them grow up and knowing where they're gonna
Right.
end up, like
Right.
you're not gonna get it. And just I don't know. I don't want to say that people who like aren't army aren't capable of being empathetic or understanding like what their army friends are going through. But sometimes it really like you just need another army there who
Yeah.
like
I
who
agree.
will be there to get it with you. This is gonna be controversial, but even then, I have some friends who they're like army, but then they don't get it sometimes.
Yeah. I have those friends.
And you have to like there's like a certain level of army. Like you have to be on the same level of army to like
Yeah.
have that experience together and know how to talk about it with each other. Because there's too many times where I think about when I have like really like when something traumatic happens on army Twitter, right? We are in a community who experiences trauma frequently,
Frequently.
right?
Yeah.
Frequently. And I remember the trauma of the 2021 Grammys
Whew. Yeah.
and and not being able to talk about that with anyone except like the people who I had online who were my army friends, right? It was like very like that whole week I think I was just out of it. And
Gosh, that week was truly traumatizing. And I agree. There were like I tried talking about it with people and I was like, look, this happened and I I couldn't even. I wrote that experience somewhat. I alluded to that experience in some ways into my Army Magic Shop play paper because it was that traumatizing. I needed to talk about it in a place that felt people would actually see it and hear it. It was that traumatizing.
yeah, and when you experience that trauma, it's like very hard to process. This goes back to the whole burnout conversation too. Like
Yeah.
there's so many army specific experiences, even though burnout's a universal experience and trauma is a universal experience. It's like
Yeah.
them being like specific to armies, it's like so difficult in particular to process because a lot of times armies don't have armies who are like on the same level as them, like around them offline. To be there to like hug each other and to like be present with each other, it's so much more difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like most of the people I know, like on Twitter anyway. Yeah, on Twitter, most of the people I know don't have offline army friends. Like
Yeah.
this is it for them. I and for me, even like most of my close army friends, people that are kind of my age, that are kind of my same mindset, they're all across the country, kind of a thing. Like one of them's in Europe.
Yeah.
We get together for concerts and that's when we get to see each other in person. And so yeah, there's like that's a whole other level of, kind of figuring out how to deal with things when they're like abstracted across time and space. And
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like whenever I go to a concert, when you meet other armies or like your army friends, it's like that's like a therapy session right
it
there.
is. It is.
And okay, I love concerts so much, but there's such ephemeral spaces and like temporary spaces that like I feel like there's not enough processing that happens even in that space.
Yeah.
You know, I need a therapist. I need to go to therapy. That is the final conclusion.
And we
We
have
need to go to
heard
therapy.
that
Yay.
we need a better mental health care system in this country so that therapy was easy to get. That's what we need.
Yes. And we need more mental health therapy that is just better and also understands people from online communities better. Because I
That's
know
true.
sometimes, like my friends who are in therapy, they talk about like online cyberbullying. A lot of therapists are not equipped to help you
No.
through that.
Yeah,
That's
no.
the truth.
That's very true. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those
So,
things you really have to live through to truly be able to understand it enough to help other people with it.
yeah, definitely. It's like I want a therapist who has also been cyberbullied so they
I
understand
would like
me.
my therapist to be an army who has also been canceled online so that we can talk about that experience.
Yeah. Honestly, we probably could find someone like that. That would be interesting
All
to
right,
talk with them
goals.
about.
Goals. Yeah.
Goals. We should have guests on this podcast. I don't know when. Maybe not this year.
Eventually.
Next
Next
year.
year. Yes.
Yeah. That's the goal.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's burnout. That's trauma. Any final thoughts, Kate?
My final thoughts are, yeah, burnout sucks. We all go through it. We're all feeling it. We're all feeling it a lot right now. And I think that people should take this as an invitation to do what they need to do to take care of themselves and to not judge other people for taking care of themselves.
Yes. We should all reflect on our experiences and do that. And not
Yeah.
hold anger in our hearts. I'm working on that. Not
Yeah.
hold resentment or sadness. Because I still am sad about all the people who left once chapter two
Yeah.
started.
Yeah.
And that's something that I have to personally kind of work through and I don't know, I need to talk to a therapist, but that's what I need to work through. So yeah, we're all gonna work through things. We're gonna be burnt out right now, but hopefully there will be a time where I can just be offline for a month and then not talk to anyone and just be in my little cubicle just by myself. But Kate can do something else because we're different people and we need
Yes.
different things.
Yes.
Yes.
So, the like TLDR is that even if I am not posting on Twitter, I am still there watching you. So be careful what you say about me.
Wow. Okay. I see how it is. Yeah. But exciting overall. Even though this is a kind of a more mellow episode, I think we covered a lot of ground.
We did. And I
Yeah.
think that like there's a lot to learn here. And I would love to hear about other people's experiences and about how they deal with these things too. So,
Yeah. That sounds good. Good plans for the future.
yes.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for listening, watching. If you're reading our transcript, hey,
Yes.
transcript readers. But thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day. And as always, remember, go stream BTS or don't if you need to relax. Like,
Go listen to an
it's
album
okay.
by BTS.
Yeah, heal yourself.
Go heal yourself. We're here
Yeah,
for you.
love. Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yes.
Okay, take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.